Hi, I'm Rainbow, like in the sky, also known as Angelica Perry, D.O. And Bruce asked me to introduce Tom Baker, who doesn't really need an introduction around here. For most of you, I probably don't either. But, I've known him for about 20 years or more. We've been coming here for a long time and worshiping together, and most of the time that Tom and I have spent together has been worshiping, and he's been doing the sunrise service for many years with Bruce. So I really liked what you were singing about, Cheryl. That was beautiful. I think a lot of us feel like we're coming home when we come here, and I think many of us feel that we're in a soul group that's been coming to worship together for many lifetimes. And so it's just very wonderful this Easter to be worshiping with you, Tom. And I would like to introduce Tom Baker and as Brother Tom. And as we go through this time and personally in your life, a time of death and resurrection, just want to welcome you home.
There was a time in my life where if you called me brother, I would have corrected you. But father no longer seems quite right. I should be brother. Brother Tom. Let Brother Tom have a little drink here. Oh, it feels like water. Fear not, you secret Baptists, it is water. When I was a little child, my grandmother was the only one who could get to me when I was misbehaving. I used to throw rocks at dogs and cats. It gave me a sense of power, I guess. I wasn't sure quite why I liked that at the time, but I liked their reaction. Just like to do that. Sometimes I even threw tomatoes at them. One day I was taking aim at a big poodle when my grandmother intervened with her show-stopping phrase, and she said to me, "Now that's not the Tommy I know." I knew exactly what she meant. I dropped the rock. The Tommy she knew was a gentle child who snared butterflies with a butterfly net and let them go, who trapped bees in a jar and let them go, who caught bluegills with a hook and let them go, both animals and grudges. When I was good, she would say, "Now there's the Tommy I know," and I would beam. I loved being the Tommy my grandmother knew. Isn't that sweet? Sometimes she would tease me by asking me, "Is that my Tommy?" And I would immediately drop my rock and think kind thoughts about that day's dog or cat. I felt such loved when I was recognized. We all do. Our names are the most important word of the language for us. And I would say that when we fall in love with someone, for an instant we remember that we've spent lifetimes with them, just like Rainbow was saying. That we're all here. We really are not strangers. The ego tells us that we're all strangers and we hope someday to fall in love, but we probably won't, and if we do, it'll probably not be good enough or right enough and all that business. That all life is a series of broken hearts and broken promises, and it just isn't true. It isn't so. That actually, we've been together lifetime after lifetime. And we've all been in disguise. You have to look through the disguise to see the person. That's why one of the wisest spiritual sayings is, you can't tell a book by its cover. You can't tell a person by their presentation or by their looks. In the moment of recognition with each other, we love one another. We say, "Ah, it's you." Despite my becoming a priest, I did not grow up Catholic. I grew up Bible Belt. I'm from Kentucky, where the Church of God, and the Church of Christ were very influential. Around Easter, there was lots of talk about the second coming, when Jesus would appear in the sky with a giant scepter, and he would separate the sheep from the goats. What this meant was that Jesus would separate the members of the Fern Creek Church of God from everybody else, sending the Fern Creekians to heaven and everybody else to hell. There was lots of discussion about who was going to go to heaven, and especially who was going to go to hell, because there was a limit to who could go to heaven. If you know your book of Revelation, it says in there that only 144,000 are going to heaven. That number has been memorized by fundamentalists from the second year of their birth, practically, from when they could talk. Out of 6 billion people on earth, 144,000 is a tiny minority. Of course, it's also not the point. Heaven refers to the kingdom of heaven, which is already here, which is right now. And as the Gospel of Thomas says, the kingdom of heaven is spread out over all the earth, and no one sees it. Now, over time, we pushed the kingdom of heaven to the end of life and made it where the chosen people go when they die. Yet heaven is the consciousness, really, of the right now. The recognition of the Christ in the other, and finally in the self. Each of us is the son or the daughter of the living God. Yet we're not ready to see even the person of the other, much less the Christ in the other. In the ego's world, which is also the world of the Church of God and the Church of Christ, we are strangers to one another. I suspect Jesus has been back many times. The second coming has happened over and over again, I bet. Men and women come back. They've been good. They've been earnest folks, humble, quiet people. But they accepted themselves and all they met as children of a common, transcendent Father. Jesus is the kind and generous teacher. Jesus is the prayerful soldier. Jesus as the mischievous gardener. When Mary comes to the tomb, she's looking for Jesus, the Jesus of her memory. But who she encounters is Jesus in disguise. Jesus masquerading as the gardener, teasing Mary about who she is seeking. The risen Jesus doesn't look like the Jesus from Nazareth that we expect to see. Tall and noble, with copper-colored hair and searching blue eyes. Instead, we see the humble gardener with dirty fingernails, eyes downcast, his dark face sunk in a hoodie. "Who are you looking for?" Jesus asks. He builds the suspense, prepares Mary to see, though. When she says that she is looking for Jesus, only then does he say her name, the most important word in the language to her, Miriam. And the joy rises in her like a fountain. Rabboni, she says back. That means teacher. She is recognized, and she recognizes Jesus. In that moment is Easter. That's when it really happens. this recognition that is the resurrection. I am seen as who I am, and therefore I can see you beyond how you appear. So the resurrection is happening whenever one of us recognizes the other as the Christ. Bruce, the Christ. Where is Bruce? Sitting by Marty, the Christ. Susan, the Christ. Lloyd, the Christ. Kathy, the Christ. If ever you could hear the good about you for about 2 hours without a break, you would know that you are the Christ. Think of hearing that for 2 hours straight. I think that's what the first few days in heaven are like. You just get complimented all the time. Wow, what a lifetime. Way to go. Home run. That was great. Amazing. Tremendous endurance. Ah, wow. Gee. The second coming is not the coming of Jesus. It is the arrival of the other who you are willing to see as the Christ. Now, I had an encounter several years ago with a homeless man who I saw in my hometown of Louisville, Kentucky. I found out a lot about myself from that homeless man. I gave him a $20 bill. And I gave it kind of like, here. I didn't want to even look at him. You know how you don't make eye contact with those you're being kind to? And he grabbed my hand and he asked me to stay a minute and talk to him. He said, "You're very generous, but not very friendly." And I thought, that's me. Generous, but in a hurry to be on my way. The homeless man asked me what my name was. I said it was Tom. And he asked how I made a living. I said, well, I'm a psychotherapist. So he says, so it usually takes about $100 to have a conversation with you. I was embarrassed to have him put it like that. So I said, a therapeutic conversation. Of course, he said, therapeutic is an expensive adjective. I ought to know. I used to be a psychotherapist, charging $100 an hour. And I got to drinking and doing drugs. My wife left me, took the kids, I lost my house. Now I live in my car. My name's Tom, too. My fee has gone down. But I can still see a brother when I meet one. You're a good man, Tom. Don't forget me. I haven't. That was my Easter that year. The homeless man insisted I see him as a person worthy of conversation. I ended up seeing him as the Christ. Now the skeptical side of us will say, was that the risen Christ really sitting on the sidewalk? I would say, yes, that was the risen Christ sitting on the sidewalk. That was him. Of course it was. Easter is the only holiday that we can observe every day. It is the miracle of recognition, and it is always ready to be celebrated. Thank you.